Hello YouTube, Annabelle56 here, and I'm going to share with you my Doctor Who, my New Who Doctor Who Series 1 to 4 box set. This set comes with 23 discs, and it contains the 9th Doctor Series 1 and the remaining 3 series with David Tennant's 10th Doctor. Okay, so you've got the BBC DVD thing there, Doctor Who logo there, 12 DVD. There, TARDIS at the side, there we go, 55 thrilling episodes, starring, and the TARDIS again there. I'll show you the bottom. Okay, so series 1, Billy and Christopher Eccleston, Billy and David, Freema Agyeman and David, and Catherine Tate and David. Best pairings, I think. Some really excellent pairings. Okay, this comes off. Here we are. You get this book there. I'll flick through it briefly for you. There you go. It contains all the episode guides for all 4 seasons. Series 1, 2, 3 and 4. Okay. Complete first series. It was really well done, I think, and I think it was absolutely genius of Christopher Eccleston to actually leave, because it introduced the concept of regeneration, and people got over his regeneration pretty quickly, unlike the event that they've now become due to people staying for longer. But I think that was a really, really good concept. I love the fact that most of the stories took place on the same satellite, and it was self-contained. It really worked well. Love it. Series 2, awesome. You just felt like the story was just continuing with a different guy. With the same guy, the same character, but different body. It was awesome. Loved it. Series 3, Martha Jones, The Rebound. She was an awesome character. Really strong. Knew when her time was to go, because it just wasn't working. What she wanted and what the Doctor wanted was 2 separate things. She was the rebound, and he knew that she liked him. Really strong character. I felt that she was overlooked, but then again there are rumours that the BBC didn't like her character, but I thought that Martha did a stunning job, and she had a really, really hard job to do. Catherine Tate, awesome character, just a friend, no love interest whatsoever. Just a friend and a guide. She was brilliant. Loved it. Loved it. And I think it's worth noting that Billie Piper had 2 series, Martha had 1 full series, and Donna had a full series. All these companions had 1 series, then they left. I think that's an important point for it. Okay, then come the specials with David Tennant. And I really like the idea of the specials, because I think that further establishes Doctor Who as event television. Doctor Who is not just an ordinary show anymore, especially with the Christmas episodes that are also contained in these series 1 to 4 box sets. But especially here, these specials sort of summed it up. Okay, so we've got a Christmas special, The Next Doctor. We've got an Easter special, because that came out at Easter. This one sort of came out in the autumn, if I remember rightly, and then these 2 were more sort of November, and then this one happened on Christmas Day, and this one set the pattern for actually having Christmas Day regenerations or Christmas Day deaths. This was a really well-rounded summing up of David Tennant's time as the Doctor. I love the fact that he managed to have episodes without companions, because it actually showcased the Doctor as a lone character, as a character who, yes, he does travel with people, but when his companions are gone, he still is travelling, and it's still his life. And I love the fact that they did that. It's a really brave thing for them to do, especially the concept of the Time Lord Victorious, which I think is a concept that's still running in the series, even though he maybe or maybe not did what he thought he did to his home planet. Okay, complete 5th series. Okay, you can tell straight away that the design has changed completely. You know, I love the fact that you've got him walking away at the back there. Awesome, and it's burning and it's on fire and it's really kind of like angry and like, ah! Okay, moving on. Got the new logo. Nice blue. Blends in with the new TARDIS. PG. See, these are 12. But I think Doctor Who has struggled to get the PG rating because it does cover complex issues, and especially if you're going to have Doctor Who jumping out of a strip woman's cake, I think you're going to have difficulties getting a PG rating with that. Okay, the first season's a 12, second season's 12, third season's a PG, and fourth season is a 12. Specials are 12s, and the 5th series with Matt Smith and Karen Gillan is a PG, which is a tad surprising, I think. But I think Moffat really wanted it to be a PG. Also, the confidentials are cut down here, and I think it's worth noting that Confidential, yes, it got taken off BBC Three, and everybody was really gutted. But BBC America actually gets more sort of confidentials and behind the scenes stuff than the British fans now. I think that's worth mentioning because it's actually helping Doctor Who grow in America. It's just a shame that the UK fans don't get them, and I think the reason for that is, one, the UK fans might find them a bit simplistic because they're obviously having to explain things to the American audience, and two, I think we might want more detail. And because it's made here, I think the pressure of them was really starting to get to everybody. Because you've got to remember that Matt Smith was only 26, so I think they were kind of like trying to protect Matt a little bit. Okay, complete 5th series, Pandorica, all of that. So there we go, nice artwork. And then here we go. So really well put together, like the new design, loving these plastic things in blue, I think it's really good. I enjoyed the 5th series. At first I didn't really kind of understand Matt Smith's Doctor at all. I just thought he was like, you know, had forgot to take his Ritalin or something. And he did speak really fast, and it was kind of difficult to keep up with it. But it soon settled down. Shame about Moffat's never-ending sort of timey-wimey twisted plots. It is a shame, because I feel that sometimes you do need to have straightforward, just filler story once a season. Purely, one, to give people's brains a break, and two, to allow the characters to breathe, because you have to have character development as well as pace. And I felt that sometimes Moffat, particularly with his female characters, doesn't flesh them out as well as they should be. Amy started off really strong, and then in this series she kind of goes through so much that it's just all happening too quick, and you never really have the characters breathe and have their emotional lives explored, and it's sort of very, very quick and very, very fast paced, unless you happen to be the Doctor in River Song. And I think with the second viewing, or possibly even the third viewing, you might see more of that, because I think it was done. It's just that the stories are so quick that you miss these little moments of that, and I think that Moffat could perhaps allow more for that. Perhaps in season 8 we will get more of that, because maybe Peter Capaldi's Doctor won't be acting like he's forgotten his Ritalin dose. No offence to anybody who has ADHD, but because Matt Smith was just hyper all the time. He really was. Which is not a bad thing, but it kind of is important if you want to be able to be understood. And it was. It was a change of pace, because the thing is with David was, I think David was very still with the Doctor, even though he was flapping about. His hands and arms were fairly still. It was more his feet and more of his expressions, whereas Matt Smith, everything was moving. His arms, his legs, his whole body. his face. You know, he really threw himself in there, quite rightly too. It's interesting to note that both of these are six disc sets, whereas the complete 7th series, I got these two from the BBC shop recently, and I got these for £12.99, which I think is a bargain. Complete 5th series for £12.99 and the complete 6th series for £12.99, which is awesome. This was £22.99, which was really good, because in the shops it was like £32, which is extravagant considering that it's 1 disc short, because this is 5 discs. And I think the main problem with Series 7 is the fact that, one, we've had 2 series with Karen Gillan. This is Karen Gillan, or Amy Pond, with the Doctor, and then the Doctor has to bring Rory around because Amy's basically falling in love with the Doctor and not Rory. So he's got that to contend with, but I think he also likes the fact that Amy and him nearly were an item. But you've also got the lovely River, who is his wife. In this, I love the fact that they become sort of like this bizarre family. So you've got mum, dad, and then the in-laws and everything. So they're all related, so it becomes even more personal. In a way, it's incredibly personal, but the way Moffat has written it is completely so fast-paced and so disjointed and so messed up that you don't actually see the significance of that until it's too late. I also think Series 7 suffered from the fact that this was the first time, one, this series covered 2 years, so it was split in half, and two, this was a major change. They not only changed one companion, they changed from having 3 companions to 1 companion, whereas before you had here, you know, 2 series with Billie Piper, then Freema Agyeman, then Catherine Tate, and it was a change of a companion a season, so each companion got a good long run and you felt that their story was complete after a series. With River, we will never feel that her story is complete. We know there is stuff that her and the Doctor did that we will never see, and that's why it's the greatest story never told. We know that. But also from an Amy and Rory perspective, when you consider who they are or who they become, it's huge. Okie dokie. My favourite episode of this whole series is... I really, really enjoyed the Crimson Horror. I really love that. I really love the Crimson Horror because, one, we don't get to do very many of Into the Past stories with Matt Smith's Doctor very often. It seems with Matt Smith's Doctor it wasn't necessarily about the past or the present or the future. It was more about interlocking the characters and solving the mystery of the whole, but in a completely disjointed way, and with characters at times were going through things emotionally that you weren't sure that they were going through. So you were sort of like, why all the time? And I really enjoyed the Crimson Horror because it was just a simple story in one, but it was also complicated at the same time, and it left you wanting more. But I liked the concept of that story. I enjoyed the characters within that, and the fact you could either take it as a little 1-episode pill or slot it into the whole. Okay, now the thing is with this, is you've got The Widow and the Wardrobe, Asylum of the Daleks, Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, which is another episode I loved. I love the idea of the dinosaurs on a spaceship. Asylum of the Daleks, I'm not too happy with like humans with Dalek things popping out of them. Freaky, yes, but is it necessary? I think we could have done with more sort of dark corridors and Daleks going around them and actually making the Dalek itself scary again, because we seem to have lost that, and just creating a thing with people, the Dalek things coming out, is just an added thing. Yes, it's a brilliant concept, but do we need to see it? Does it enhance our fear of the Pepper Pot? No. Dinosaurs on a spaceship, loved that, and the fact he goes, yay, I've got a gang, I loved that. So bouncy. Angels Take My Hat and absolutely heartbreaking for obvious reasons, which I'm not going to explain. A Town Called Mercy, I love that episode. And The Power of Three with the little cubes. And the Doctor like, I'm so bored. The Snowman, The Bells of St. John. Now the big thing for me, and this is a big thing, is in the Asylum of the Daleks, I loved Clara Oswald. Oswin Oswald. I loved it. I loved Matt Smith and Clara's relationship, even though they weren't alone in the room. There was that like flirty banter, and it was really good, and the chemistry was like pop, pop, pop between them. And then we come to the Snowman, and the chemistry was almost there, but not quite. It wasn't as poppy, but you could see it was bubbling away, and it was awesome. And then she goes and dies on us, and you're like, great. And it comes to The Bells of St. John, and we're introduced to the modern Clara, and the chemistry is not even bubbling away. It's kind of like, oh, we've got you. And then we got Rings of Aquitaine, and it didn't really improve. It became sort of more, instead of lightly bubbly and flirty like it'd been pop, pop, pop before, it then became sort of very much sort of like, I am the Doctor Mentor and you are my traditional assistant. And I had flashbacks to sort of classic Doctor Who when I was sort of like, okay, but they used to flirt and have a really good chemistry relationship and pop, pop, pop. And now we're back to this. And I feel that the overall arc of Clara's character being the same person having many different lives, sorry for the spoilers, has lessened her emotional relationship with the Doctor. I mean, it's intensified it, but when you were watching it the first way through, you didn't have that flow of relationship because he was always having to reconnect with her. It's like, oh, this one's dead, move on to the next one. And it was awkward and difficult, and of course it would be awkward and difficult, but it actually interrupted the audience's ability to understand their relationship, and you didn't have that smooth flowingness that you had with Amy or with Rose or even Martha or even Donna. You just didn't have that. You felt you sort of like one episode sentence, full stop, and then we'd be like, oh, we're on this paragraph now, and you just didn't have that flow, and it kind of did disrupt things. One of the things I really like with Crimson Horror is actually Clara isn't in that episode very much, which is something I didn't realise. And I was like, why do I like this so much? And I was thinking, oh, she's not there. She's stuck in a bell jar for most of it, and I'm wandering around with Strax and the gang. And I find Clara a really difficult character to actually like, and it's not her fault. She started off really well in the Asylum of the Daleks. It's the fact that the bubbly, fun relationship has kind of fizzled out to more sort of like, I'm going to mentor you, I'm not quite sure about you, you could be dangerous. Oh, I love the return of Richard E. Grant. He plays the Great Intelligence so well, it's just awesome. And I really feel that they did Clara Oswald's character a disservice through all the stopping and starting. One thing I will say about the Snowman, and this is a huge spoiler warning, was when he says loss, when Vastra, bless her dear heart, lovely lizard lady that she is, says losses, we naturally assume Amy and Rory. At this point, we do not know that River has gone to the library, and it's pretty much confirmed in the name of the Doctor that by the Snowman, River had gone to the library, hence the new TARDIS interior, which is another thing I want to talk about. Is I understand why they did it, because the orange, beautiful orange warmth and loveliness represented Amy's hair and Rory's hair and represented his family, and of course he would change that if he's going to go up and live on a cloud to a much more spaceship, less fantasy-based thing, but it also took away some of his quirkiness. But I think it also caused confusion with Matt himself. One, Doctor Who started to be less like fun and more like work because they took all his friends away from him because they left. Two, I think he struggled with the fact I've got to play him more graver and less sort of, bouncy, and he did that really well. I felt that he managed that transition really well. And three, Doctor Who lost its bounce. It became very serious, very grave, and it did affect his relationship to Clara. And it got to a point where the casual viewer just couldn't enjoy an episode. There are lots of great things about season 7, but there are also a lot of issues and problems that I think hopefully will be resolved in series 8. But overall, I would actually give 5th series an 8 out of 10. 6th series a 10 out of 10 because that was just awesome. This series is actually very uneven, and it's only when you see all of it that you go, I now understand the beginning, and that's great and everything. But I think it might have put some people off, because people might have got stuck and they might have given up, and they might have just wanted to watch something light and entertaining, which these two are. You can hop in and out with these two. Admittedly, it might hurt your brain to do so, but you can hop in and out. Anything to do with River Song does complicate matters, because she's going backwards and the Doctor's going forwards. But I feel with season 7 you couldn't really hop in and out. But they did try with like A Town Called Mercy and Dinosaurs on a Spaceship, The Power of Three, and The Crimson Horror to do that. I love the introduction of, well, the reintroduction of the Ice Warriors in Cold War, and there were quite a lot of episodes that you could class as standalone ones, and I think that was part of the problem, was Clara was never really fully fleshed out until the end of this season, which disenfranchised her as a character, because you weren't really bothered about her, you were more bothered about the stories. They were trying to sort of like, enjoy the story, and all you kept on thinking was sort of like, who is Clara? And then when she wasn't there in the Crimson Horror, I was like, I'm really enjoying this story. Oh, why am I really enjoying it? Oh, because the woman who is really annoying me, because I don't know who the hell she is, isn't there, and I'm able to actually enjoy the story. Okay. I've got the Day of the Doctor here. I think that this was really well done, but I am questioning why Moffat was so bothered about, filling us in and connecting all the regenerational dots, so that we had, from... I love the fact that they brought back Paul McGann for this. I love that. That was the best thing about the 50th anniversary, to see him regenerate and actually to see him be the Doctor. I love that. Be the 8th Doctor again. Sad that Christopher Eccleston didn't do it, but I love the fact that we got John Hurt's Doctor, the War Doctor. Loved it. Loved the fact that we explained why Elizabeth I is not like the 10th Doctor. Love that. I think it's really good, really well balanced. Loved it. Loved it. Brought back the Bad Wolf in. It was able to use Rose, his character, as the Bad Wolf, but not actually have her there, because it took a long time for the Doctor to get over her loss, because I like to think of it as, after the Time War, Rose healed the Doctor, made him better, and then he got River so that he could heal her. So yeah, I thought the Day of the Doctor was really well done. Sometimes it can be uneven, but I think that's pretty good criticism of Moffat. He writes really, really, really good stories, but he just makes them so convoluted that you have to work so hard at it all the time, and it gets to the point where, particularly when Matt Smith regenerated in A Town Called Christmas, where I was having to explain things to my 80-year-old grandparents, and for a show that's supposed to be family viewing, it can be, incredibly difficult, because I'm sure the under 7s might struggle a little bit, and the, senior members of the family. So I think that they really need to consider that in future episodes, Obviously, I'm sure that there are some, 6 to 7-year-olds that could understand it completely, and I'm sure that there are some 8-year-olds that understood it, but I think that Doctor Who needs to take that into consideration. Can't get that back in. But yeah, I will be doing, when I do get A Town Called Christmas, I will be doing a review of that. I really enjoyed watching The Day of the Doctor. I went to the cinema to see it and it was awesome. But I like the fact, my big problem is with Series 7 and this one, and then A Town Called Christmas, is they were almost able to stand alone, but yet they can't anymore. There's so much backstory now from Series 1, New Who, not classic, of New Who now that has to be encompassed into everything. Hence why David Tennant had to marry Elizabeth I and blah blah blah, you know, those kind of references. And the fact it had to satisfy classic fans as well, and it did manage to do that. But there's so much backstory now. There's all of this, and all of, you know, Paul McGann all the way to William Hartnell. And that's a lot of history to condense now. And one of the main problems I think Doctor Who's going to face in the future is the fact that the casual viewer actually has a hell of a lot of knowledge of the show now, even just in passing, particularly in Britain. So I think that's something that will need to be considered. I'm hoping with Peter Capaldi and Clara and Season 8 that I think the show will go from strength to strength, because I think Matt Smith was actually right to leave, because I think for him, I think he really enjoyed playing the early, bouncy, kind of fun-loving Doctor, and I think he really did, he did that really well. I think the Graver Doctor, he did it, but I think it was actually costing him something. He'd lost his bounce, as you can somewhat see from his sort of like, oh, I'm grieving, I've lost my in-laws, my wife, and I've got this woman with me that just keeps dying and getting reborn. It all got a bit tad morbid for him. And I think he lost his bounce, and it stopped being fun for him and became actually very difficult work indeed. He was able to do it, but he wasn't enjoying it anymore, and I think that was the right time for him to leave, because he got his bounce back in The Day of the Doctor. And the reason he got his bounce back was he had David Tennant, who's very jolly and kind of like, yeah, let's go, man. And he was like, yeah, this is cool. I'm with David, we're just going to chill. And I think that's what gave him his bounce, and he was happy. And I think he struggled. Okay, that's my really, really long review of the New Who era and the Matt Smith era. Rate, review, comment and subscribe.